Ahoy, ahoy. And we are live. Hello, folks. Good evening. So, let's see if you can guess what we're doing tonight. Oh, yeah. It's Deathwing. It's always Deathwing. Right. So, let's see what we're painting with tonight. So we're moving away from Obscurity Bone. We're going in with two thin coats Vampire Fang. Because Obscurity Bone annoyed me. Get a little bit of this on the palette. Tiny drop of water. Don't put too much water in this because it will thin out far too much. It's a very thin paint as it is, so we don't want to go too far with it. So you may notice as I go through these, they've all got different primers on. But tonight, what we're actually doing is testing out how this scheme works with different primers. So this is AK Interactive's Grey Primer, 3rd gen. It's got not a bad finish, as you can see. I've shoulder and arm. It's done in Vampire Fang. That's Obscurity. I'm just working on the leg at the moment. Working very thin coats. Build that colour up. Because we want to avoid what happened last week. We're working with the Obscurity over black, where it just clogged everything. It left us with a very, very uneven finish. To the point where I didn't really think they were salvageable, to be honest. Very light, thin coats. I found you do need to be slightly more delicate with this colour, as maybe a darker colour. And try and keep your brush strokes all in the same direction to avoid any tearing and unevenness. We're going to see if we can get these fully painted at the end of tonight. Well, I say fully painted, I mean the armour fully done by the end of tonight. Put some washes on and just see how it goes. It's mostly just working with different primers, seeing what gives us the best effect. This grey from AK Interactive, not a bad colour to work with, to be honest. But you see with the next one, it's not quite as nice. This is just a white primer. This is also AK Interactive. The tone's a little uneven, and you start seeing that through the paint. It's not wildly unpleasant, it's just, I'd say, not as effective. But we'll keep going. We'll paint all these to completion. And we'll see how they look. Those nice thin coats of Vampire Fang. Get that really clean ivory bone looking finish. It does go over this white quite well. Even with just one coat, it seems to just be too upset by it. We're just trying to. We're going to go with the same sort of contrast style, as in not painting over something we've just painted, so as not to disrupt the finish. I doubt I'm ever actually going to use these Terminators, but more working out what works and what doesn't. So far, both the AK interactive primers seem to be working quite well. Blocking all of this white. But that knee plate was done purely just with Skeleton Horde contrast, just to see how it reacted with it. Because the white is quite speckled underneath it. The finish wasn't great on it. I mean, you could just go straight from this to a contrast and be done with it, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. Go over that Python thing. Nice gentle thin coats. So used to working with darker colours in a more grim scheme. You have to be slightly more delicate with the lighter colours. They tend to be quite unforgiving with mistakes. Work our way around, make sure we've got all that blocked in. Not sure where this crest ends. Where it begins, it's a bit weird shape, this. Let's see how this goes over the Obshebti. Not super happy about going over it, but it is. Brush marks left on there. Ahoy! Ahoy, wandering, ahoy, Frost. No, I couldn't stay away, man. But I'll show you what we're actually doing though. So we've gone for different primers, and we have actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different primers we're using this evening on 5 different models, testing out the fit and finish of each one. So this is working on a white primer at the moment, because I couldn't let go. I couldn't do it, man. It was irritating me that it was just being so annoying. I needed to figure out how to do it. So I decided to do science to them. So we've shelved the black primer because I'm thinking that was a big part of it, and we're using a different bone. We've gone from Abshabti to using Vampire Fang. It's ever so slightly lighter. There's a slightly more even finish to it. It's just over white. We've got the grey. Which I think works quite well. And then we've got the Vallejo Skeleton Bone Primer. So this is all primer. That's Vampire Fang. As you can see, there's very little difference between the colours, but with that, you don't have to fight it as much to get a very clean base. Like the two colours are so similar. Kind of glides on. Just cover up that skeleton horde knee. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I had to go back to them. I needed them to reveal their secrets to me. Very light coats of this. Like, far thinner than we were with the Abshabti last week. It's almost thin enough to be a glaze. We're just trying to make it as smooth as possible. Not leave any brush marks or anything like that. I think this primer is coming out on top at the moment out of the 5 of them. It's mainly because it's only a shade or two darker than the colour we're actually putting on. Just blow in ever so gently into this. It was a pain in the ass finding all of these things. All the primers, I mean. Usually I just use the same one for everything, but it just wasn't going to work with this. No worries, Frost. I hope everything's alright, dude. Annoyingly, this primer only comes in tiny little bottles like this. So if this does turn out to be the one that is perfect, we'll have to pick up a couple of them. I mean, the finish on these is actually really nice. It's going on very, very smooth, which was my big problem with the last ones, that on camera, yeah, it looked smooth, but when you actually looked at it under the light, it looked like you dipped it in a pot of Dulux or house paint. I don't know if Dulux actually translates. Right. Now on to the next Vallejo colour we've used, which is IDF Israeli Sand Grey. It's slightly browner, but it works surprisingly well. So on this side, it's all one. That's just one coat gone over that. One very light coat. I would have thought this sort of colouring may have been difficult to go over, but it seems to cover really well. Even though it is sort of like a dark chocolatey brown. The colour just seems to cover really nicely on this. There's cracks. Oh, fair enough, dude. Well, I hope that goes well, man. I mean, when I get this scheme down a bit more, it'll go faster, but this is just playing with colour theory mostly. On there. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with this colour, to be honest. I honestly thought this one would give me more trouble. Just insignia are very annoying. Trying to figure out what's armour and what's insignia. You can probably tell the paint's starting to separate ever so slightly there. Give it a quick mix. Very finicky colour, this. A little bit upset. And just tiny little mix on the palette, and it should be neat bother. In-betweeny bits. As you can see, that shoulder was painted with Shabti, and the rest of this is Vampire Fang, which is a much lighter, creamier ivory, whereas that looks quite dark and sandy compared to this. So the next one, the next primer we've used, Vallejo Arena Desert. This is a very... Catch Light Frost. Have a good evening, dude. It's a very sort of banana-y yellow, this colour. It has got no Vampire Fang on it at the moment. Let's put the initial coat on and see how it goes. These only turned up today, so I haven't actually had any chance to test out coverage on these. I've literally managed to prime them and then just let them sit for a while so they cure. I did have to put 2 coats of this on, as it's quite a thin primer. But I did water them down though, so they didn't glue up any of the details. Pretty decent colour match, to be honest. No idea if this will even need a second coat. We'll be able to tell when it's dried. This is going on a lot smoother than it did last week, though. I had to strip them. They just looked so bad under the light. It did look like I'd gone at it with the house brush. It's unacceptable. This is very much like a banana yellow, though. The more I stare at it while I paint it. Just about see the difference between colours. God's bless Vallejo and their stupid amount of selection when it comes to primers. Because I'll be buggered if I'm priming anything with a rattle can anymore. It's about 6 weeks of the year in the theme park where you can actually do that without destroying everything. And the rest of the time it's either too cold or too hot. Yeah, probably will need a second coat, but not a particularly heavy one. Work this in a bit. There you go, Banana Man. Catch you later, Frost. Just gonna mix up a little bit more of this. And solitary drop of water into it just to thin it ever so slightly. Remember, you can always use the back of the hand trick just to see how thin your paint really is. What you want to be able to do is see the pattern of your skin underneath it with almost full coverage. The last colour we're working with, I know it's not a Terminator, I ran out of them. Another AK Interactive Desert Sand. It's a 3rd generation. So it's a lot like the last one. Very, very yellow. Bit of a rougher texture. The Vallejo ones are a acrylic polyurethane blend. Theme, not so much, but they do have more of a texture on which helps the paint stick to the model a bit more. Sometimes a good thing, sometimes not so much. In this case, yeah, it's alright. Actually, just wanted to see how it covers. Actually, doesn't cover too badly. So there you go. A fundamental for you folks. Always choose the right primer. The job. Whereas I got lazy, tried to do it the quick way, and ended up screwing myself over. Which isn't particularly useful. as you can see, there's almost a one-to-one match with the primer. It's just coating over really nicely. Through a comparison at the end as well. Just seeing how they all compare to each other. But I would say all of these colours that I'm currently using as a base are good choices, so it's all really depends on what your to be. They all do seem to be doing a pretty decent job. And who doesn't like making things a bit easier for themselves? Yeah, I mean, you almost can't see the difference between the primer and the paint on these. It's not a bad thing at all. Makes life a lot easier. But as I said with the Vallejo ones being a bit thin, if you only do one coat, they can end up like that. So water it down slightly, do 2 thin coats of the primer, let it dry for a couple of hours before you start messing with it. That is the Desert Tan from Vallejo. Not actually going to do anything with this model. This is literally, I was just testing out the opacity of the primers. Yep. Welcome back, Wandering. Yeah, these are the last 2 that I'm playing with are Sigmarites from Age of Sigmar. So I ran out of Terminators and had too much primer, so I just grabbed whatever looked slightly Terminator-y. Oh man, not being able to leave work at work, yeah. So, nope, as soon as I leave, I'm done. Work phone is off. It ain't my problem no more. So this is the grey from AK Interactive. Just so everyone knows, none of these people are actually sponsoring us. It's just me testing out primers. My own sadistic pleasure. We are doing science to them today. The grey takes it quite nicely. You need 2 coats of it, but even then it sits really well. And with the good thing with the AK primers, they don't finish really glossy. The paint adheres quite nicely to it. Gives it some texture to grip onto. I'm doing the old school Terminators because the new Leviathan ones were getting very, very upset with me stripping them continuously. And I may have dried the plastic out to the point where they started getting micro fractures in them. I'm constantly dumping them in the stripper bath. Pretty sure it's some kind of isopropyl alcohol. They were just getting a little bit upset, so I didn't really want to have to strip them again and risk destroying them. I think this would have been the 4th or 5th time that I've dumped them in. Yeah, grey takes it really nicely. Not a bad base to work with this. Once these are all coated, we'll stick some wash or skeleton horde or something over them and see if we can get a little bit of contrast going on. But we'll probably be selectively pin washing them so as not to fuck up the finish. Who knew it was going to take this much goddamn effort just to paint some bone armor? If we don't try, we don't learn. Like hell, I was going to be beaten by some Terminators. Just had to rethink my strategy a bit. A little bit thin, that's right. Top of that, and then around this stupid little light, which I've managed to break off of most of the other ones by being cack-handed. Check, make sure we missed anything. That shoulder there is still a Shabty bone, the rest of it is Vampire Fang. And back to the white primed. See, this one I'm not overly happy with. The white is quite blotchy underneath it, and it just isn't finishing very well. So I think we have a clear loser out of the primers. No clear winner yet. We'll keep layering this up just to see how far I can take it. But it is quite patchy underneath it. With how thin you need these coats to get a smooth finish, a patchy undercoat is not what we're looking for. So this primer might get relegated to the box of shame, the other ones. Shame though, most white primers do seem to be a bit patchy. Definitely the Games Workshop ones and the Vallejo ones are. Don't seem to want to stick very well. I mean, it's not terrible. I wouldn't sit here going, oh, it's the worst primer I've ever used. And it's not bad, it's just what we're looking for. Work that in a bit. Yeah, there's a little bit too much showing through from the undercoats for my liking on that. Oh yeah, on camera, it doesn't pick up too badly, but when you're looking at it from 15 centimeters away, which is something I've also got to remember, most people are never going to look at it this close as I am. But I do get hung up on this stuff quite a lot. Yeah, white paints are always terrible to use, man. The only white paint I've ever found that has really good coverage is Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White or Chimera Colors The White. And that's only because they are both pure pigment titanium whites. Every other miniature paint or white paint I've used, awful. Just infuriating to use. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why I stopped doing any priming or painting in whites years ago, because the old light colours were just absolute dog shit. Brush needs a bit of cleaning. Okay. So this is Vallejo's Skeleton Bone. And it's only had, so this side of the body had 2 coats. This has only had 1. And you really can't tell that much. I mean, if you want to be really lazy, you could use this primer, do 1 coat and then shade over it. And maybe dry brush just to build it back up slightly. You could call it jobs are good. Very nice primer to work with though. Everything's dried very smooth and glossy. Yeah, there's not as much grip as the AK ones. It feels like a very solid prime. I remember in the old days some of the primers you'd use and you could almost rub them off just by touching them with your fingers. The old shitty days of priming stuff. The old wild west of the hobbying. I will admit though, with the sorry, I'm drifting again there. When I was previously doing these Deathwing, I was being too cocky and didn't really think about it enough. I need to sit down and go, right, I'm painting a very light ivory colour over a dark sort of German Panzer bluey black. It isn't going to end well. And then I did it 3 times. Yeah, maybe I should have re-evaluated a little bit. Oh well. Live and learn. I am going to leave that shoulder as a shabty just as a comparison. So when we're done, we can take a look at it. There's no pooling anywhere. That's good. So they basically like this. Let's see if I can get it on camera, but this is chalky and translucent. So yeah, I really hate rattle can priming. I don't know how it is out in where you are wandering, but out in the theme park, there's maybe 6 weeks in a year where it's actually viable to use a rattle can. If it's too cold, it frosts. If it's too humid, it frosts. And you know, then you've got to do the whole dunk it in some hot water for 2 minutes before you use it, shake it to all hell, and I fucking hate rattle cans so much. So this is back to the the IDF Israeli sand. And this is one I was actually most surprised by. It's the darkest of all of them. But it's taking the ivory colour ridiculously well. So all of this side is one coat. One very, very watered down coat of the Vampire Fang. And it's just taking it quite nicely for such a dark primer. Like I said, all of these are viable. Don't feel like you're hemmed into using any Games Workshop stuff. I'd say this is taking it better than the Xandri Dust primer that we used last time. Far better. I'm not even having to repaint most of this. I'm only doing the bits that are just ever so slightly discoloured. Just where the paint was a little bit too thin and it went slightly translucent. Strengthening up little bits. A little bit light on the hand and the wrist here, but again, just pretty thin coat over the top of it. I think I'm going to claim this entire painting series I've done is to prove a point that it's okay to fuck up. But you can just strip everything and start again. That's the lie I'm going to stick with. Yeah, you see? Gun's still a very rich chocolatey brown, but everything else taking the colour really nicely. But yeah, you'll never catch me using a rattle can again. Hate the bastards. So this is, we're back to the last of the Vallejo primers. This is Arena, well, this is Desert Tan. And it's almost a 1-for-1 match with the Vampire Fang we're using as a base colour. It's slightly more yellow than ivory. Just go in, very lightly change. It's a good colour to work with, but it's also a disgusting colour. It's very banana-y. But it does take the colour well. That is all that really matters, to be honest. I just have a weird thing about yellows as well. Why? Just not a fan of the colour. I will say though, with this being so similar, it is slightly difficult to tell where the hell you've painted and where you haven't, without looking for the sort of slight discoloration of the primer. It's so goddamn close. Slightly ridiculous. Just this arm to do now. Hopefully these will be ready to get some washes on in a minute. We can slap some wash on and then try and layer back up from doing that. And I think we'll be using... If I was going to do this properly scientifically, I'd have 3 models all primed in the same colour, all painted up, and then use 3 different washes on them. But I'd be buggered if I'm painting up 15 Terminators just to do that. These 5 will have to do. Some of that banana yellow. I mean, it really isn't a bad colour match for this. Yeah, about that. Then back onto Sigmarite with Desert Sand from AK Interactive. Again, this is like the white and the grey one. There's a rougher texture to it, so the paint seems to adhere more readily to it. There's quite a nice gritty texture to it. Allows your base coat to just blow into it quite nicely and stick. I think we'll throw some Skeleton Horde on this one. He's done, and see how it takes it. Although we will be trying not to flood the model with it. What I've seen and what I've read with contrast paints, like colouring something in with a felt tip. You just want to stain it with it, not flood it. To run out in the palette. If you flood the model with the contrast, it will just dry far too dark and it will ruin the base coat underneath. What the actual fuck is this song? Extremely unsettling. I'm gonna rinse the brush off. And also change the music. As there's some sort of possessed toddler trying to take over. Oh, the paint highlighters. Oh, the paint markers. Yeah, I have tried them. They're really good. I just can't use them very well. So I need to practice with them a bit more. There are actually a lot of people out there that think it's a sort of a cheating, dirty trick to use them, but it's just an art tool. If you can use them, then just use them. They're a very good tool to use if you can. Captain Grey Primer. So I think out of all of these, out of 5 of them, I've got 3 that I'm pretty goddamn pleased with. 2 of them, not so much. Yeah, I had no idea what that was. It was starting to freak me out a bit. I wasn't ready for it. But the whole point of this, the last few videos I've done for this is literally to make painting bone as easy for people as possible. Because it has a reputation for being an incredibly difficult colour to work with. I knew there had to be an easier way of doing it. I just needed to figure it out for myself. How are we doing on this? A little bit more. Yeah, so that side's taking it well. No pooling, but this side needs a tiny bit more, just sort of in there. It's the flatter areas, it just needs a little bit more just to strengthen it. Again, just one drop of water into it. Then it's ever so slightly. It flows a little bit better. Just the flatter areas really that need a little bit more.
What this means is if you take your time and plan things out and make sure that you are set up to perform that job as flawlessly as you can, you're going to have a much better result.
I feel personally attacked by this song. So 2 very thin coats, and this grey is taking it like a champ. Stabbed a little bit too much there. Yeah, once these coats are done, we will just be throwing wash on these and seeing how it affects them. Again, this song, I feel personally attacked by it.
Lingering doubts as to whether your workmanship is good. So don't be that person. Take your time and really enjoy the process as much as you can, and try to make the product as perfect as you can. Then you'll be able to rely on this thing for years to come.
I mean, the song's not wrong, but also, what the fuck? It's supposed to be just lo-fi. I'm not sitting here waiting for a fucking TED talk. Let's give the face a little bit more. Just 'cause some of the flatter areas are slightly translucent still. There we go. So the grey's working out really nicely. The white I'm not super happy with. I think it's a little bit too inconsistent. A little bit mottled and weird. Honestly, it was a bit too thick coming out of the bottle, but even thinning it down with some water and a little bit thinner didn't seem to do much to it. So, I don't think we'll be using this particular primer again. Slightly too mottled for my liking. I mean, it's getting covered, but it is taking more work than any of the others. And the finish just is not as nice as any of the others either. Keep going with it, see how far we can take it. Throw some wash on, see what it does. Back to the Skeleton Bone by Vallejo. One of these companies don't end up sponsoring me by the end of this for saying their name 4,000 times. I don't know who will. I mean, this one is got to be one of my favourites out of all of them. But being a Vallejo primer, it does have the tendency that if you're brushing it on, it can pull up on you. You just need to watch out for that. They are mostly designed to go through an airbrush, but you can just brush these on. Because I'm far too lazy to buy an airbrush. Did my coats, and it just goes on like a dream. You can see that shoulder pad is still a Shabty bone as well. I'm just leaving that there just for a little comparison at the end. But don't worry, it's not like I've forgotten to paint it. I'm purposely leaving it there. Yeah, I'd say that. It's 2.5 coats and it's done. Yeah, and I would agree. Perfect is never a goal. And yeah, I totally agree, man. It is the realm of stagnant narcissists. Never strive for perfection, just strive to do your best and hopefully improve upon the last thing you did. There is no such thing as perfection. It is a lie we've been sold. So I was changing the arm on my chair slightly in the way. Yeah. But fully agree with you on that, dude. Strive to do your best and hopefully improve upon what you've done before. This Israeli sand is coming up really nice. I honestly thought this was going to give me more trouble. I honestly thought out of all of them, this colour just absolutely looked like dog dick compared to the others, but it's actually taking the colour really well. It's almost no bleed through, no transparency from the bottom. It's just I mean, this could almost be switched out for your everyday primer. It's dark enough to really work with anything. It seems to take light colours like an absolute champ. Yep, quite like that. What they're striving for perfection. Back to the banana yellow. Another Vallejo. Weirdly, it's the opposite of the Israeli sand. I thought this one would give me far less trouble. It's not really giving me trouble, it's more the tones are so similar. Difficult in this light to know where you've been and where you need to go. Isn't a bad thing, it's more just me being blind as shit. As you can see, I'm just doing very quick, light layers over this. It's just making it really well. I'm just using a really shit synthetic brush I use for most of my just cocking about. I don't really want to destroy a nice sable brush. Then again, no point being a brush snob, they all do the same thing. You just need to learn to use them. Find myself drifting back to the old shitty Games Workshop ones just because they're cheap comparatively compared to some of the others. So what, this is just a medium layer. Ahoy, Django. This is another 8K interactive one, as I keep saying. It's got a grittier finish on it. The paint does stick to it quite nicely. Quite a nice texture to it. Slightly rough. I mean, it's not an exact copy of a Terminator, but closest thing I had to a 6th model. And it's not a bad little, not a bad finish, this. Not being particularly neat on this one. Back's done. Go. And we'll get some wash on these in a sec, and we'll see how they go. Tin transparent. That's why sometimes you do need to put 2 coats of the primer on, if it is particularly thin. Don't talk about that number, Django. The world's most annoying number. Yeah, I'm going to switch over to music because it's starting to really irritate the piss out of me. There we go. Go for a little bit of chill pop. Yeah, I mean, all of these are taking it quite well. So now we've just got to down a bit. I think that's being really annoying. Just wait for this to dry and then we'll look at basically either going for a Skeleton Horde or a Seraphim Sepia. Both of them need shaking quite badly. They've split to hell. I think we'll try the Skeleton Horde first because it dries more of a brown than a red. But we do need to be more careful with it. It's, if you put it on too strong, it kind of just eats through what you've done below it. But do shout if the music is getting too loud or obnoxious, and I will change it because I'm only half listening to it while I'm doing stuff. For some reason, Pretzel Rocks does change the volume of every track individually. Quite annoying. I mean, would you? Oh, okay. Check just for you, Django. I will check on Pretzel's Rocks if there is any known core on there, just for you. Give me 2 seconds and I'll have a look. No, I don't think there's any known core, man. Yeah, I've gone through it. There's no gnome core on Pretzel Rocks. Sadly. Right. Let's what are these doing? So they're ready for pin washing. So let's just mix up the Skeleton Horde. Apologies for the noise. Just if you don't mix the hell out of contrast paints, they do tend to get very, very angry. They get incredibly angry if you don't shake the hell out of them. As I'm lazy, I use a vortex mixer. Right. Just going for recess shade on this. We don't want to leave behind any big pools of it. Just want to very subtly work this in. Even that, slightly too much there, so I'm just going to go over it. Just drag it off my brush. What you want is a very smooth, flat coat of this. Go over afterwards, and just layer back up. So I've not watered this down in any way. I'm actually just putting a little bit on my wet palette. Gently staining the model. We're not washing, we're staining mostly. This is more like using the old Games Workshop inks, like a chestnut ink or the old ones. You can go slightly darker in the recesses if you want to. It's completely up to you. I'm just trying to go for a very smooth coat. Work across the miniature, not leaving any pooling. Like, you don't want to leave any weird discoloration because it will come back to bite you in the arse afterwards. can leave slightly more over the knuckles and things. Especially on these flat areas. You want it as smooth as possible. All one flat colour. If you've got too much, just wipe your brush off. So you can't see any difference between the brush strokes. Once you've done an area, just leave it alone. Probably using a bigger brush for this to minimize the amount of times I actually have to touch the model with the color. But I'm committed now, so we're just doing it with this one. So as you can see there, darker against the join. I'm going to try and be quite careful with this. Really don't want to leave too much of this anywhere. This is just to give us the hint of a shadow. Once it's dry, we're going straight back to the same colour. I'm going to layer it back up again. Try and get it as smooth as you can. As you can see, I messed up slightly on that knee and I've touched it too many times and it's gone a little bit weird, but that's fine. Fix that. While it's still wet, you can try and make it go where you want it to, but once it's started drying, you just gotta leave it. Because this will tear and leave weird sort of coffee ring kind of stains. Try and get the most of it against the edges, but just don't drown your model in it. Do not want this going all over the place. As you can see on that knee, lightly smeared, but we can fix that once it's dried. Get it to run in between the fingers. Some depth. Shoulder around this joint. Full amount on this side plate. It's very flat, so you don't need a lot of it. Just want to slightly stain it. Here, these deeper recesses you can go slightly heavier on, just to indicate that they are in quite a lot of shadow. I mean, on the white one, I'll show you kind of what happens if you go too heavy on it, just as an example. Every time before I'm going the miniature, I do take my brush to the palette just to roll the brush and try and get some of the pigment out of it. You don't want to go to it with a fully loaded brush and then just let it spill into everything. Get into the recesses of the face. Convince it to sit in the darker areas and stay off of the I want to try and keep the coats as even as possible. See there, I wasn't particularly even. It's stained ever so slightly on that joint, but it's a flat surface, so that's alright. We can go back over that and slightly more in these recesses. Just gonna go straight to the part. Dip that in. Now we'll just be very careful. Top here.
And I don't want to hear another word about our personal problems until I get this down.
You see, I've dragged it out of the recess. It was a mistake. Well, it's just me being cack-handed there. Now, one of the most difficult bits I find, if anyone else does, the shoulder. So we're not going to do the entire thing. This stage, we're literally going to go around the crux terminatus. Just pin wash it. Because this is an entirely flat area, you don't really need to shade it all that much. Again, going just over this. Work it into this chapter symbol. Once this is dry, we'll start layering back over it. Well, it probably is, but it's just not on Pretzel Rocks, and this is the only thing we found so far that gives us lovely, lovely background music that isn't copyrighted. Right. So now, I'll just close this and give it a shake first. This paint does tend to split very fucking quickly. This is what happens if you try and wash the model too quickly. Skeleton Horde just kind of takes over. Just darkens everything far too much. But at the end, we are going to try and see if we can repair that. Bit of dry brushing. I'm doing this on purpose because I want to see if it can be fixed from that dark. Fuck it, we're doing science today. Any bits that have been left white you can just go over with this. Stain them. I mean, even though I'm trying to make this a bit slapdash, I don't want to completely ruin it. If you put it on too thick, it will just go a very deep brown. The arms. Then at the end, when it's dry, go over with a dry brush and see if we can just fix it slightly. If not, then yeah, not much is lost. I had already decided I didn't like this white primer, so alright, we'll just go around this. Do it the exact way we did the last one, but without taking much care. I mean, you can stain it from white if you want to be really lazy. Okay, there you go, fully stained. But not particularly what we're looking for. There. And onto the top. Although these contrasts do take a fair amount of time to dry. Yeah. That's what can happen if you just slap the contrast straight onto it. They're not towel it in the bottle. They do tend to get a bit upset if you're not careful with them. Okay, for this one we need a slightly big brush. We're actually going for the wash brush for this. Be a little bit more careful than we were on the white one. Gently work it into the face. Pooling anywhere. Lane it ever so slightly. A little bit of dark. so we can have the illusion of some shadows in there. Into this leg. I'm not going to work it into the entire model because we are going to work it back up to Vampire Fang. Just connecting plates I really want to do. Just to add a bit of a transition between the areas of armor. Places like in here. He's got his fist balled up. Fingers. Signia on the palm. The wrist, where the fuck it is. And on the other side as well. We're not trying to paint the model in this color. We are literally just adding shadow where it's needed. But there will be plates and things that I'm just not touching because they don't need to be. But just the inside of these legs, little squares. Between like the elbow and the hand. Because this is actually textured on the back of the hand, we'll add it to the entire thing. And a little bit of shade between those spikes, whatever the fuck they are. Random Games Workshop bullshit. Just a bit in there. We're really just trying to create the illusion of shadow rather than painting the entire damn thing this colour. Because this is the colour we want it. Like before we did this, it was already the colour it needed to be. This is just an extra step. Add that little bit of depth to it. So that we'll leave to dry. Once it's dried, we'll tidy it back up again. You'd enjoy the posing pouch there, Django. I'll even start on the posing pouch on this one for you. This one's quite a textured one. It's slightly darker on this. Put that in there. And fingers. Shit, we've got some on the plate there. Well, we can tidy that up afterwards. I mean, I've never painted the model without accidentally hitting something I didn't want to paint. Get this entire little... whatever the hell it is. The foot. Again, we're just blocking in some of that. Basically, we are painting lies. As you can see on the back of the hand, just work it into the knuckles. Skulls as well. We'll do the entire back. There's quite a bit of detail on this one. Because we've based it in the colour it wants to be anyway, we don't have to do the entire model. We are literally just pushing in some shadows. I know I keep saying that, but it's also for me to bloody remember as well. Get to the little joint there. Onto the foot. Do all the way around on the foot because it's going to be darker. Detail that afterwards around this leg plate because there's some random guffin on it. And then last but not least, the face. Like people say, you've just got to treat these like felt tips. Hit an area, try not to go back over it. He says while accidentally touching everything he's just painted. Flat areas, you really do need to try to not let it pull up. Just work it around the crux terminatus. And then on the random bullshit that's on this side. Brush it clean. And I heard earlier there is a 20 mph clamp down on all of rural Wales or something like that. I've no idea, man. I saw what was going on in the news today and just went, nope, I'm not watching this. It was something about they've decided, nah, going green, fuck that. Let's just not do it. And I just went, yeah, this is going to upset me, so I'm not watching the news. So this is the Vallejo banana yellow. Well, there's a tan. Just going to give the skeleton horde a quick whiz. It's been sitting for about 10 minutes. And you can tell when it's starting to get a bit weird because it starts going glossy. If your contrast is going glossy, it is not mixed enough. I found that out the hard way. So, start layering up a bit of this. So just for Django, we'll start the cod piece again. Staying in there because they're going to be painted anyway. We'll go on to the hand. Off. There's a little bit too much on my brush there. I mean, some of these we're going to try the old dry brush method on. Some of them we're just going to layer. And we'll just see what the different effects are. Make sure it's worked into those knuckles. This random bit of insignia. Basically what I'm trying to do is hit anywhere there's a join or plate touches another plate. Anywhere there'd be like natural shadow. And you can do this with a much smaller brush. I just using this one because got a nice thick belly and a reservoir in it, so I can kind of gauge how much is left in there. Also, it's synthetic, and I don't really give a shit if the contrast destroys it. Well, contrast paint does absolutely wreck your brushes. Get into the detail. All these little nooks and crannies around this. Stand out a little bit. This one. Into these panels, squaring them off a bit to make them look a bit more shadowy. Joints in there. Get into the fingers again. The collar. But this insignia will go green eventually. Now we're just going to work what's into here. There. So I'm just going to do around kind of the hood, whatever the hell it is. Just slowly working into the face. Don't want to leave anything behind. Really, too much on it. Just want it to get in all those little crevices. Stain it. There. There. And now we go around the crux terminatus. And if we get it on the actual crux, because we're going to paint that different colour. Around the piece that's touching the shoulder. Same on the other side, around the insignia. The insignia will eventually be painted white, so we don't have to worry about it actually touching it. In some places we're using this as a recess wash, in some places we are just staining the panel completely. A little bit more on this bit. Add some depth to that. Down. Again, we're just touching the brush to it, just to a little bit. Doesn't matter too much in these crevices, like in between the arm and the shoulder, because it's going to be dark anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. There and there. To the back of that. A little bit in the front. Bit there as well. There we go. It ain't perfect, but they're going. So I forgot to paint around the crux terminatus on this one. Just work that in slightly. And also around this random piece of chapter iconography. Add a bit of difference in. You really don't want to be too heavy with this. Now, we play the waiting game. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat now. I think if I'm fast enough, I can make myself a gnome costume for Halloween. You definitely should, Django, and you should share pictures with us. Shtick, pointy red hat, blue overcoat, and brown pants. Wondering, wife, we need to lose weight. Also, wife, I messed up all these macaroons. Eat them so I don't throw them out. Oh, that's a very caring wife, if not consistent. I mean, I wouldn't complain, wondering. You got macaroon. No. Oh, slowly wait for these to dry. I mean, I think I'll try the... No, I'll leave that one. Use something else for that. Got an idea for him. Do something else with this one. Now we dry. Once it's dry, we'll be taking one of these. Nope, not that one. That one's shit. Where's my dampening pad? Dampening pad. Clean water. Work that in. It's too wet, you can always just press down on it and drain it slightly. That's about what I want with it. So this is because dry brushing isn't actually dry brushing. So before this touches the model, you actually want to dampen it a bit, and that will usually deal with any of the chalking effects. Because if you take this, wipe your brush off on a paper towel or kitchen roll, yes, you're getting rid of a lot of paint out of it, but what you're also doing is stripping all of the medium out of it and leaving yourself with just pigment. And that's why you get streaking. You need a small amount of moisture in the brush still so that it actually catches and paints on instead of just chalking. But we are playing the waiting game at the moment because everything's still quite wet. I don't really want to go into this until the contrast has had a small amount of time to dry. But it's almost there. Give it a few more minutes. And what we're going to do is going to take the old white primed that I've loaded it up with. We're going to go over this and see if a dry brush can fix it. I don't think it will. This is why you don't want to go too thick with your contrast, because you get this very uneven, discoloured mess, basically. You need to treat it almost like you would be layering. You need it a consistent colour all the way through, because it will just speckle and look a bit weird. But we'll see if we can fix it with a bit of dry brushing. All the others have just sort of been recess shaded so that when I do go over them, it will tidy up that a bit. And any bit we need to, we can just layer back over it. So these are how they should be. Apart from that bit, I fucked up there. This is not what you want. A little bit more like that. A lot less like that. No, I'm dampening it with a pipette. And it's literally just a piece of sponge. It's like in the old post office, you know, where they had like the stamp moisteners. It's literally just one of them. A few drops of water in it from the old pipette. Or if you're lazy, just dip the back of your brush in the water. Like that. Like that. I use a pipette because I have a million other fucking things sitting around, so... But you don't want it soaked, you want it damp. And now that I've been talking about it for 10 minutes, let me show you that I'm going to completely forget how to do it on camera. I'm on the palette. I am using a piece of chipboard, which is what I work the colour off with. I don't use like paper towel or tissue or anything, because you don't actually want to strip all the moisture out of your brush. Like that. Make it damp. Into your paint and then work it on a texture palette. Work it into the brush. You can test it on the back of your hand. And then we go in. Let's just see if I can fix the absolute fucking mess I made of this. I think I fucked this too far to even be repairable. Oh well. Let's do a little bit more. It's already fucked, so I'm not that bothered by it. I would prefer to layer these things. I just really want to see whether I could fix it with a little bit of dry brushing. I mean, I can pull it back to a shabby bone, but I think I've put it on so unevenly. It just doesn't want to. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't really want to go back to. I mean, it's a dry brush, Django. It's not a tampon, I promise you. do tend to use my hand as a palette when I'm painting. Drying in this brush. Clean it properly afterwards. Leave it dry. There. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to first ones, and we're just going to lay it back in. The Abshapti bone. Not the Abshapti bone, fucking hell. Vampire Fang. So we'll take the first one. Into it. Give it a mix. And we'll just in the flatter areas work the colour back into it. Just leaving that in the deepest shadows. Any of that coffee staining we saw earlier, we can just clean it up at this stage. On the flatter panels. Around the rivets, we'll leave it darker. On this knee, middle of it. Just work it closer and closer to those rivets. And just leave it a darker colour. Just work our way around the entire thing like this. Cleaning up the flat panels and leaving it in the recesses. Like up on here, just gonna push this back. That's the way we want it. Because the shoulder's quite flat, most of it will get turned back into Vampire Fang. The hand. Only flat areas. Push back into the lighter colour, and all the recesses are just left. That skeleton horde on them. Model like this. Most of it. And on the knee, if it hasn't covered as well as you wanted it to, you can just go back over it. Just strengthen that colour back into it. Flat panels like here. There's no natural shadow on them. Just clean them back up. And then in these, you literally just paint. Slightly smaller square inside of them. Raised areas. What the natural light would be. Because you're going to move a darker colour, some of these little highlights will need more coat over the top of them just to re-establish that mid-tone. Don't feel like you need to go in there too heavy straight off, just get the shape you want. Gradually work your way back up to it. Start this foot here. Most of the time you can see where the wash is the darkest, so you just leave those bits and go back in on the flat panel. You just gradually work your way around doing that. Yeah, it does go a bit golden with that wash on. We just need to re-establish the bone. Why the fuck is Pretzel Rocks playing Scraping Chairs? I don't know. I am painting with a Windjagger. So we're just going around finding all the flat panels and just adjusting the colour, but leaving a tiny amount in the recess. We don't want it to look muddy, basically. We want to re-establish that very clean bone colour we had at the start. Just with that very subtle golden sort of colour in the deepest recesses. I mean, it's not really perfect. I'm painting at a really fucking awkward angle doing this. Slow process of the cleanup now. Like on the top here, this arch, all that gone. Just the lightest hint of that in there. Same with this. This entire top part wants to be bone again. Only the recesses of this will stay that gold colour. Alright, we'll go back over that top bit and put another layer on there. Just wanted to get it very lightly on there just so I can establish the shape. Get under here for this foot. And let's clean up that leg. Just work all the way around. Pushing back the shadows that we need to. Damn it. Managed to fuck that up. Oh well, nothing goes perfectly, does it? Well, play the cards you're dealt. If I really need to, I could just dump a little bit of wash on that and just reshade them. Bust. Just about slowly working that crisp bone colour back up again. With our incredibly fake shade in there. I mean, I'm a lot happier with these than I was with the last ones I did. Just lightly touch the brush to the face and catch the edges. Kind of doing it with the side of the brush, not really jabbing at it, but you know. I mean, I'm not too upset about that. So, I will explain the insanity that was the last ones. So they didn't look too bad, but when you actually got up close to them, it looked like you dipped them in a bucket of Dulux. Like there was actually, you could see the thickness in the paint. And this is a plasma cannon. So yeah, that was what was irritating me. I actually showed Ugg what I was doing, and I took some close-ups for him. The problem was actually I might have an actual picture of what the problem was. Anyway, see if you can see that, and I've just knocked everything over, so it doesn't really capture it, but you can see the paint where it's building up, and you can see the brush strokes in the paint, and it just it's not good, man. I mean, like there as well, if you get close enough to it, you start seeing the brush strokes. And for how long I've been doing it, just kind of find it unacceptable for me. It's just irritating when I know I can do a lot better, and I'm looking at it thinking I've just spent so long doing this, and they look awful. Yeah, this brush needs a good cleaning. Poor little fella, getting all caked up. Oh dear, just chucking everything all over my blade desk again. I am very, very rusty at painting. It's been a long time since I've just sat down and done any properly. Smoothing out these transitions, especially on the flatter areas where you can see a slight discoloration underneath the new mid-tone. Not too mad at those. I'll probably go around and fiddle with the highlights a bit. Strengthen the colours up a little bit more, but really, that is the idea. Yeah, I mean, on the back of it, it looked... It was pretty dire. So yeah. Layered on. Just spackled on. Big old difference. And also, I don't usually paint in these sorts of, you know, in this sort of like light colours. Everything I paint is usually quite dark compared to this. With the next one. The neater you are when you're doing pin washing, the easier it is just to work back up. And if you're absolutely fantastic, have perfect aim, you may not even need to layer back up, but my aim's not that great. I'm old and my hands are shaky. Go in with a slightly lighter colour as well at the end and do some edge highlighting just to change the mid-tone to a higher. Thought about re-establishing the mid at the moment. Use some sort of ivory colour as the highlight. That'll be a very selective highlight as well. The trick with highlighting whites is, well, very light colours like this is, you leave most of them that colour. And the trick with doing it with blacks is you highlight most of it. I mean, there's a far more complex explanation than that. I've oversimplified it, but the idea. I mean, if I cock anything up, I can always go back in with a little bit of wash and just do it again. So yeah, basically just clean up. That was a 2-minute stream pause. That was weird. Maybe the internet hit itself slightly. Yeah, they're not so much sweaty Django as shaky as shit. Yeah, not sure why the stream paused there, folks. Sorry about that. I mean, yeah, I'm not too unhappy with those. It would help if I was actually pointing it at the camera, but yeah, you know. It got a bit long. There is something I do want to try though. That's why I was saving the other one. The last one. So what we're going to do, we're going to get a palette. We're going to shake up the contrast a little bit. Give a little whiz on the vortex mixer. Right. We're going to put 3 drops contrast. Putting out the pipette. 3 drops of contrast. Keep going. Sorry about the noise. 6 drops of contrast medium. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're doing a 3-to-1 mix. Contrast to medium. That should thin it massively. Just mix this up a bit. This should weaken the effect of the contrast vastly. And this is what I wanted to try. I'm going to do an all-over wash. And just see if that really does anything at all. Don't want it pooling still, but we're just going to give it a heavy wash with the medium mix and see how it turns out, really. I don't really want it spilling anywhere, but I'm not exactly going to be light pin washing it. See what effects we can get if we take the medium down a bit. Get any pooling anywhere. Let that dry. See how it comes out. Making the wash slightly less prominent than it was on the Terminators. I'll back to him in a bit. Get a chance to dry out a bit. I'll just get rid of this for now. Yeah, so we're not at a bad point with these. You need a little bit more here and there, but they're coming along. I'm trying to correct the light balance a little bit in the camera there. With my brush. Good question. Is that it? Yep, that looks like it. So we're just going to fix up this little bit here. You can still see a little bit of staining underneath it. Oh, shit. And there was a hand slip. It happens. Let me just go around and clean this up some more. Start pulling the other ones into the same sort of area. Just go around the knees, get the flat panels back into being bone, and just leave the little riveted bits. I would admit, I do fucking hate painting this colour. A very boring colour to paint with. I'd much rather be painting everything green. This sort of colour is a lot easier to do when you have an airbrush as well. Much fucking around. But needs must as the devil drives. Just hitting all the flat panels again. Taking out any of that blocky shade and bringing it back up to bone. It ain't never going to be perfect, but as we said earlier, we're not aiming for perfection. We're just aiming for slightly better than I did last time. Slowly bringing this colour back together. Careful here. It's a narrow little narrow join. Might not even go down, it might leave that how it is. I need to go down. It's too much. Touch the fingers for this. Here, the shadow there was far too dark. It was way too dark compared to the rest of it, so I just need to get rid of it. I mean, I might leave his codpiece like that, it's quite fine. Areas again. I mean, some of it's a bit stark, but it works. Yeah, I'm not super unhappy with that. I mean, it's coming along. It needs some more highlighting stuff done to it, but it's way better than it was. Right, I am going to have to start winding down though, because it is 20 to 1. So, tonight, we've mostly been fucking around with Deathwing. And seeing what primers work. And so look at the old Sigmarite. I mean, it's slightly less stark, so I think maybe in the future, a 3 to 1 mix. Although, does it make much difference? Ever so slightly, I suppose. I think it makes enough of a difference to actually do it. So yeah, I'm going to do them again. I'm going to water it down with some medium. Just to take out that harshness from it. Yeah, we've slowly made some progress. Much better than it was the other week. I ain't perfect yet, but you know, as we've said before, not aiming for perfection, just aiming for learning. So don't paint it like Sad Marine. Sad Marine is sad. Well, thank you all for joining me. And if you have liked the content or today's stream, please like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notification. It really does help us out. And thank you very much for joining me, Wandering and Django. As always, it was a pleasure to chat with you guys live. Should see you all again on Friday for the next live stream, where we will no doubt be playing some more Satisfactory. So until then, thanks for joining me. Take it easy.